Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I've taken the last couple of weeks off, so I hope everyone had a great Christmas and a great New Year's. Honestly, to be able to spend time with my family, I took those last 2 weeks off. So we are a week late on our second annual Predictions for the Year show with Paranormal Sarah, who's she's the host. I'm her co-host on the Tuesday night show, which is awesome as well on the Paranormal channel. And I got to say, last year we were really good on our predictions. So we're going to try it again this year. But I'm going to preface, I got a ton. I did a lot more research this year, so I got a lot more predictions. But I got to say, I hope I am wrong on most of them because I hate, capital letters, hate most of what I'm going to talk about on this show.
I will say that whereas usually in the past and for past shows have put in a ton of effort in trying to kind of, be ahead of the game and figure this out. For those people who joined us on our social media streams earlier for like the astrology and alchemy, I spent this morning and mid-afternoon really just trying to get my stuff together and prep for this. And that really didn't include as much research as I would like. So I'm hopeful that you will have some instigation points. And then I've got my music playing in the background. I've got a lot of divination going. I've got my incense. I've got my coffee. I've got my smoked orange peel essential oils, because the predictions of other people, Nostradamus, people across the realms and things of that nature, Event 203, things of that nature, conspiracy theories, religions, all religions, even the astrology, as we will learn tonight, doesn't look great. It doesn't look great.
I will add what I did last year. What I did was I did basically the general astrology and made predictions. This year, what I did, being the anal person that I am, I did the general astrologies, and then I took the United States, the EU, NATO, Ukraine, Russia, China, Biden, and Trump, and did all their solar return charts for the year to try to line up what kind of aspects they have going on. And then I did this huge matrix of trying to align what looked similar. So that's what I came up with. Where I came up with is where a lot of these things came into similarities. I gotta say, it's scary how many things came into similarity, but I hope I'm wrong, because again, they go the exact opposite way of what I would like on the world stage. So
right.
That being said, I know we did it different last year. Once again, I have mine broken up as the year, month by month. I don't know how you have yours done, but I'm willing to kind of work it either way.
Month by month.
Okay, cool. I'm going to add ahead of time. I don't have a lot for China. I'm going to predict it. I'm going to say this ahead of time. China and Trump are the two that I don't have throughout the course of the year. I'm going to say in general, I think China, for the whole entire year, they are going to have massive issues with both COVID outbreaks and domestic unrest outbreaks. If folks don't know what is going on, last year,
shit going on right
China, their individuals don't have the stock market to invest in. They invest in properties. Their housing market was kind of a pyramid scheme that collapsed. So there was a lot of people losing money. There was a lot of unrest, to which the Chinese government responded by doing COVID lockdowns that had less to do with COVID and more to do with controlling the population. I feel that all is going to go in a much more profound and massive scale next year. And what you're going to see as I make my predictions during the course of the year, just keep in mind that China is just going to jump in to stir the pot wherever they can. The other piece on Trump, as I did Trump's chart, I believe that all of Trump's legal issues are going to catch up to him. And we're already seeing this right now, but I feel he's going to be diminished as a player on the world stage. And the GOP will likely more coalesce around DeSantis. I feel Trump's trajectory is going to diminish during the course of the year, and he's going to be less of a player, not more of a player. 2023 goes on. So if I was on the GOP side, which I'm a former rhino that got kicked out of that party, if I was a advocate on the GOP, I would put my money on DeSantis, not Trump, going forward.
I'm going to put when that happens, just because it's like a little pinpoint to add here and there. That's going to happen right before July 4th. It's going to happen on July 3rd.
Yeah, some of these I have very specific dates. Other of these are just month related. So with that, I will defer to my.
Let's go monthly to monthly. Let's start in January.
I will defer to my kind co-host first, and say what do you have for June, Miss Sarah?
For what?
What do you have in your predictions for June? Or I mean January. I'm sorry.
January. That's this month. So one of the things that I started with, I have to be careful with my energy. For those of you who've not joined me before, I have to be careful. I'll kill it. I like to have a theme. I like to have a theme for the year. I like to sit back and look at it as a whole and then start to deduce it into the pieces, like a pepperoni pizza, and cutting it into its 12 parts for the months. And the theme as a whole, like what kind of pizza am I having? I looked at it and it was the everything I wanted. Everything I wanted. And I sat in that meditation of everything I wanted. People sitting back and arching their head back and looking up to the sky and saying, I wish I had this, wish I may, wish I might. And that's like Zen magic, fire, chaos magic. It is in that space. And so for January, I feel like people are making big proclamations. I made proclamation of wish. And I gave a theme to the year for the everything I wanted, kind of be careful what you wish for, Zen, chaos, magic. And also there seems to be a really repetitive theme of starvation and consumption. So I feel like January is where I see a lightning bolt. And Katie, welcome. John, Steph, Matt, everyone. For January, starting off, I do see the new moon and where it's placed. I wrote down the new moon, not the full moon, because that's past already. That's behind us. And that was a ridiculous emotional earthquake. I have a lightning bolt happening on the 17th. And the lightning bolt, I can't quite decipher in my intuition yet if I feel like it's a Mother Nature thing or if it's...
I'm going to add real quick before you keep that date in mind with my predictions, which are not tied to a date. So keep the 17th tied to what I'm going to say.
Okay. Because I do feel like there's going to be, I wrote down the words over. I'm kind of drawing off. I feel like there's a lot of water in this. So I don't know if it's like throwing people over the ship, Jamie, or I don't know if it's political overthrow, but I feel like this is domestic and I feel like it's water and I feel like it's on the 17th and there's a lightning bolt and there's energy and there's electricity here. So I'm not quite sure how I'm placing that yet. I have a few different things internationally as well, but this is kind of a political month. I'm going to say political month. Carson, Katie, Jamie, what do you guys think? January, what are your predictions? Matt, what are your predictions for January?
All right. So I'm going to say ahead of time, I did this during December. So some people can call bullshit because I feel the first 2 points that I have for January already happened. And that is one, that there was going to be a major increase in aid to Ukraine. If you look at the U.S. with sending the Bradleys, sending those things over there, I feel that's already happening. Number two, I had Russia was going to offer a peace deal. Now, that could be something different, but it could also have been that Christmas truce that they threw out there that got rejected. So kind of put that aside, but I feel that's already kind of gone on. What I feel is going to happen, and this might be around the 17th, I feel there is going to be a profound event before the end of the month that is going to rattle the security of both the US and the Europeans, basically the West, so to speak. Could be a bunch of different things. Could be a EMP attack, could be a terror attack, could be a cyber attack, could be a nuclear weapon going off. If you want my opinion, I feel it's going to be a cyber attack because this will lay out the rest of the year. I feel that it's going to be a cyber attack that is going to cause major damage both economically and to the energy markets, whether that is like destroying some energy infrastructure or something along those lines, that all of a sudden the energy, access to energy to the countries in the West is going to be threatened, as well as the financial system is going to be massively rattled. And that is going to set the tone for the rest of the year. So even though things look fairly positive right now, I feel there's going to be this counter attack, whether it's from Russia or from some proxies wanting to take advantage of this, that is going to profoundly hurt the West before the end of the month. That is my big prediction for January, which again, I hope is wrong, but that is my prediction.
Well, as we
said, I would target around the 17th to look for that to happen.
What month is going to be a boogie shake your butt month? Asking for a friend. I don't know what that asking for a friend.
Well, I'm going to add real quick. I see this month as it's front loaded for aspects. I see March to May being the most active parts of the month or the year. So you're going to get front loaded with all the bullshit, and then it's going to kind of just be all the fallout coming forward. So I would say March, April, May is going to be the peak of all the bad shit, because I see a lot of bad stuff happening this year, and it gets kind of quiet as the year goes on.
Interesting, because I have that and some. I have
so I'll add real quick ahead of time. Pluto goes into Aquarius. So Pluto moves are huge. Pluto moves into Aquarius in March, and then retrograde, I believe it's in May, goes back into Cap. So I believe March and May are going to be massive shifts on the world stage. Just so everyone knows, the last time Pluto moved, which was into Cap, was 2008, and it corresponded exactly with the housing crisis and the whole economic collapse, the Great Recession, I guess it's called, as opposed to the Great Depression, was Pluto moving to Cap. So expect big, big, big things when Pluto moves. Pluto has 2 moves this year. Into Aquarius, which is the element of rebellion, and then back into Cap, which is kind of structure and control. So I see like chaos, and then
when is the second shift of Pluto? When is the second shift of Pluto? I know we're kind of jumping around.
I have it in here, but I want to say it's in June. I'll call it out when it happens. But what I see is going to happen is I see chaos in March. And then what's going to happen is I see actually the autocrats kind of aligning things. So kind of the bad players on the world stage consolidating their gains when it retrogrades back into Capricorn.
Okay.
And I see it as the bad players taking control because it's retrograde going into Capricorn. So it's progression, but it's distorted and negative progression. So it's going to be progression in a bad way.
So refocus on January. I know we're calendar jumping a little bit here just because we're looking at big changes and kind of lining them up, which is why I would suggest for anybody, if you're joining us, have a piece of paper that you can kind of fill in gaps as the intuitive process works. One of the things I love is that my intuition, it's almost as if these voices back in the back here, and again, if you want private readings for birth charts, spirit guides, all that stuff, Matt and I can hook you up. I will hear Matt talking and like cyber attack. It's going to be this, or it's going to be that. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. And so then I think, oh yes, it is going to be that. And then it's going to, happen right around the 20th. It's going to happen the 23rd. Like the voices start to clarify, choose, and almost argue over the information I'm hearing, almost as if you're listening to a lecture of something you're familiar with, and you're like, that's not true, or that is true. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you hear a voice, but for me, I know it's not. And I fill in those pieces in that way, and then I start to add more, and then I look at divination, I look at the chat. I'm of course, it is to some a coincidence, none of it, of course, a coincidence. Synchronicities of these pieces. Carson says, so would this be considered the band Styx singing a song called Add Me, Mad Me, and Mad Get Jonah by Drill? It takes 248 years to cycle, said someone. And then it moved just as I was looking at it there just for a second. So I apologize.
Sorry, I added a comment which went to all
it takes 248 years to cycle. So minus 358 from 2023. And we see what happened way back then. Steph, what is that? Because the historical overtones for some big movements are huge. That 248 cycle for the zodiac minus 248 and see what happens. See, that's where I want to reach out to my.
Yeah, I'm pretty negative, but I'm going to say that with all the things going on in our country, the day that Pluto is in Aquarius and Neptune moves into Aries, which is still, I think it's in 2025 when they finally both align that is when we're going to have like revolution and civil war dynamic here in the country.
Okay.
I think things get really, really bad here in the U.S. when those two moves happen. So Pluto moving into Aquarius is just kind of like a prelude to what's going to happen before it moves back to Cap, but not until Uranus moves to Aries and Cap in Aquarius. That's like a bad combo. Bad.
I can already start filling in things right here. My husband bugged me. What month now?
We're still in January. We're still in January, Katie. We're going slow here.
Sorry. So I've written down security, EMP shake, 17th, cyber attack, new moon, 21st. Good money month, actually, to pay attention and to watch. It's a watchful month. I am going to be paying attention to Mothman sightings. The 27th, energies and energy highlight, structure, again, going with that shake. I kind of see, okay, what are we doing here? So kind of prep and watch. I wrote the word United. I see that both as an airline, but I also see that as United. I also want to go back over it and write 99 over the top. I want to write that down. So put that in there. And then I wrote event 203, which I think is extremely important to just kind of pay attention to. And I'm putting that down for January. So good or bad, that does not matter. The polarities of receive it or take it, plan for it, prep with it, use it, recycle it. That's what we want. So for those of you joining us tonight in your predictive spaces, what do you see for January? Write it down, share it, validate it, scream it, share it out, tag us online, or send it privately if you'd like. February.
What you got?
February, it is the hunger moon on the 5th. So I've circled the number 5, and I also have the number 21. So these are the numbers that I kind of go through and I write it down in there. And so then I look, okay, what's going on with the hunger moon? There's going to be some supply chain issues going on. The very beginning of February, we're going to see how this starts to pan out. I feel like there's going to be I don't know. I feel compelled to overwhelmingly write water and H2O type related things. And this is not just a crisis of drinking water. This is like continued flooding happening in this space. Positive, negative. How is that going to affect people? My intuition already starts speaking out and filling in the pieces. Money-wise, meh. Health-wise, meh. I really see this on the 21st as being something that what is that? I'm not sure what the 21st is yet, but it speaks to me. So that's why I want to jump. So let's jump to you and see how this fills in.
Yeah, I don't have specific dates until we start getting into March, but February, I have a couple things here. I have that attack that's going to happen in January. there's going to be a major security issue, whether it is that cyber attack or whether it's something across the board. There's going to be something major that happens before the end of this month that totally changes the shift of the view in the U.S. I believe that, as well as a energy shock, possibly related to the same attack, is going to really put economic damage and really an emphasis on stopping the economic bleeding in this country. Related to that, the House is going to, with the new leadership, is going to cut off Ukraine spending, say, we need to worry about ourselves. We're not going to support Ukraine anymore. And that is going to cause a huge pressure on Ukraine to cut a deal with Russia, which is going to be profound as this year goes on. There's going to be a major shift in the U.S. to focus within domestic issues versus external issues, which, depending on your viewpoint, my personally is I feel that's going to cause problems. You'll hear about that later. And also that pressure on, particularly on the energy front, is going to cause the EU to start backpedaling on aid to Ukraine and looking to cut some kind of energy deal. So you're going to see in February this huge economic pain come up, which is going to cause folks in the West to start reshifting priorities and looking to cut a deal with anybody that is possible in order to relieve that pain, which includes some of the bad players: Saudi Arabia, Russia, Iran, all those folks. Because, and I also feel whatever this attack is going to be, it's going to be like a prelude. Like if it's a cyber attack on our infrastructure in the U.S., it's like a sign of this is just a taste of what we could do. It could get much worse, and it's going to cause a total shift in the U.S. view of things. As much as me and a lot of people would love to just be like F you and like fight back, I feel it's going to be a big enough threat that we have to actually take it seriously. And full disclosure here, I effing hate Russia, hate Russians. Like I would like nothing more than to see them like go down in flames. So this pains me to say all this stuff. I'm much more favorable to China than I am to like Russia's like my number one like enemy on the world stage. So
Katie, Steph, Dolly, Stephen, all of you guys, how are you feeling about this as you hear it? For the word for me for February is view. So you go from watch in January to February is view. So this is a different perspective. It's almost a step back. I fill in the border break on the 19th. There's something going on in the Minneapolis area, which is interesting because I think, man, why is Minneapolis specific and being brought up again? 2008 in Minneapolis was not quite the Metrodome collapse, but like right around that time, that there's people moving. There's like, there's divorcing happening here. There's some interesting things when I think of break or breaking, break up. There's some stuff there romantically on a bigger stage that's going to be important. And something about Minneapolis, I think, man, Minneapolis, has George Floyd, but it's also like there's some structural thing, maybe like a stadium. The 21st, the clamp down. You used a phrase or a word there that I was like, is it shut it up, clamp it down? What do we clamp down and shut up?
I feel like whatever's going to happen, and I know people are going to say like, oh, you need to, if you're really good, you predict specifically. I'm not sure. It could be like EMP. It could be cyber. It could be, all I'm going to say is whatever happens, and it'll be like probably by the end of the month, like Russia's going to be like, F this is enough. I'm going to shoot a huge like shot over the bow of the United States. And it's going to be so profound that it's going to get everybody's attention to where the West starts backpedaling massively. As much as I don't want that to happen, I think that's what's going to happen, Sarah. So I don't know if it's like a nuke set off in the Arctic or whatever it is. It's big enough that instead of us escalating, we start moving backwards. And so I feel like it's something that's going to cause damage to us, which is why I personally feel it's going to be some kind of cyber attack that's going to hurt our financial ability. And I actually think it's going to hurt the global supply of energy to the point that energy supplies will increase to such a high price that the West has no alternative other than to start making concessions.
I'm going to write down Australian Riptide because the divination, I went to my Pandora and I just turned on the volume for what's randomly playing through shuffling through all of my stuff throughout the last 14 years of having that account. And there was a song, Lay It On Me. And it talks about the Australia Riptide and was like the first thing that came up on the caption. So I had to put that in there. And then I believe it's the CBDC that the World Economic Forum has done the CBD, the online digital stuff. I'm going to put that for the end of February, 23rd, 21st-ish. So I'm going to put that down for how we see that panning out in the realm. Okay. So Carson, Dolly, Katie, Matt, John, Jacob, Jingleheimer, Schmidt, everybody put in your predictions for the February space. Let us know what you're seeing on your intuitive mind eye report for the year ahead. Let us know. I'm thinking slow motion for some reason, like a full steam and then slamming into reverse. That churning, the churning. Yep. And I see Riptide, and there's some water themes here, guys, that I just want to, again, kind of harp. Ooh, harp. HAARP. I'll write that down too. Why not? I'll harp on that Riptide a little bit. So, yeah, let's keep moving. March. I
have a ton of stuff for March because there's some very big, like profound, like aspects that go on in March. So I'll let you go first.
Oh, well, I don't have, okay. I have
like huge things for March.
I have Rebellion for March. I have the Crow full moon on the 7th. I have Messengers from the Underworld on the 7th, like Hugin and Mugen kind of coming through on that Crow full moon. Then I wrote down the new moon Pluto shift between the 21st, and that comes with an equinox. And then I wrote down and specifically put ritual, and ritual is absolutely sacrifice. March of this year. Holy cow, my pen just jumped. A life shift. Man, I think of the Mayans. I start thinking civilization thoughts. Atlantis thoughts. I start seeing like these pyramid structure thoughts. And I know we just pulled some tombs from the Nile, and I know that we're seeing some crazy stuff as waters recede. And, you know, I even have a little personal trip planned in March too, maybe like the Grand Canyon type spaces. But I see a lot of Egyptian ritual sacrifice in March. Take that for what it will be. What do you have?
Yeah, all this makes me mad. I feel like the pressure on Ukraine leads to around the 7th. There'll be peace discussions beginning with Ukraine. Around the 23rd, you're going to see a huge shift in the U.S. for focusing on internal and getting off of the world stage, which I'm going to pontificate on my own personal opinion here. I feel like the vast majority of our standard of living in the U.S. is related to our influence and ability to do things on the global stage. So I feel the folks that want us to be internally focused are going to win going forward, but I feel that is really contracting the pie. And so it's kind of like, yeah, we'll have full security and we'll have full control of things, but we're all going to be living in little tiny shacks and having to hunt for our food for life. And so it's like a huge drop in standard of living. Because again, we benefit from kind of being the number one player on the world stage. That all being said, so I see the peace discussions in Ukraine around the 7th. Between the 23rd and the 5th, I see a whole 23rd and 25th. I see huge things going on. I see the U.S. alliances globally are going to be frayed and broken. The U.S. is going to make a profound shift towards worrying about their internal things and cutting off worrying about external stuff. Along that same line, between the 23rd and the 25th, there's going to be a major technological advancement that's going to be announced. I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe Neuralink, maybe something else, but there's going to be a huge technological shift. Even despite all that, US is going to be like, F that, we're just going to worry about ourselves. Everybody else can take care of their own shit. And they're going to start like pulling totally off the world stage. Along with that, the alliances with the US or with Europe are going to start to fray between the US and Europe. And there's going to have to be a deal that is struck in March with the Ukraine and Russia, where in my prediction is Ukraine will remain a neutral state, able to kind of stay independent of the West and Russia, but it's going to concede territory, Crimea, Donbass, and the land bridge to Russia. And that will get finalized in March. So the Ukraine war will end in March. That is my prediction. And it will be way more favorable terms to the Russians than it looks like it should be today. That's my March. And I gotta say, it pains me. Like, I'd love to see Russia go down in flames. So this pains me to say these things.
Man, you know, when I start hearing that, my intuition then starts breaking off when you said the word fray. Man, that really spoke to my intuition.
Oh, I'm just gonna preface, it gets worse as the year goes on.
Well, and
like we're saying fray now. I'm going to say alliances like fracture.
Fracture and deduce. Man, that can be manageable, simple, more complex and girthy and substantial. So, but the word fray really, really spoke to me next to the word technological things. And I know we've been having some things with the mirrors, multiverses, string theories, and things. There's something kind of interesting in that space that I just want to add to the 23rd and 25th of March. I would say the tech fray stage is really important for March. Mercury, copper, core things. The word core comes to mind. You know, very, very, very important. Metaphorically, physically, physiologically, geologically, core. So let's keep moving along, guys. And for those of you, Dolly, John, Steph, Carson, all of you, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free and please, Katie, Stephen, everyone joining, chime in what you think for these shifts and predictions. This is March. If your intuition is speaking, speak up. Let's start filling in, keep moving along for April 2023. What do you see for April?
I'm going to say ahead of time that I hope I am like 100% wrong, and I would be very thrilled if a year from now I get comments on this as to Matt, you're full of shit. All right, April, I have the economic problems increase. So economic problems in the U.S. gets much worse. There is civil unrest in the Ukraine over this proposed peace deal. There are people that are not happy with it. So there's a lot of just general unrest in the Ukraine over that. The economic problems, even though Russia looks like they're going to benefit from this, Russia has their own problems on this. So there's just great instability across the world stage. But related to that, and this will become much important going forward, there starts to be discussions on the future of NATO and whether NATO still needs to exist. That just starts to get on the news in April. There's going to be more of that coming forward, as I will hint to now. That's my April prediction.
Okay. I will say that my April's theme is God. And I put an asterisk next to April and May for, you know, this is a Roe versus Wade moment. And I do have like Roe v. Wade but in a different way, and that this is the egg. I feel like people at the end of January, beginning of February, hear me now. If you don't want to be pregnant, the opportunity to become pregnant is going to be open. And in this united, like, oh my God, the world is ending, like all this crazy stress, hold me, love me, hold me, hold me. People make babies, like the big boom. We have these border breaks, we have these shifts, we have these economic constraints. It's also very metaphorical to people like going, oh my God, we got to cut down. We're going to have a baby. We've got things going. I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling nauseous on an individual, but also like macro level. I see almost this moment where at the beginning of April is when you realize you're actually pregnant, this baby's or a baby announcement. It's the full egg moon on the 6th. So I write down the number 6 and I say, okay, this is like the World Economic Forum recently had spoken about God, the digital God, and how we no longer need God. We're going to be making babies in little test tubes in a way like Gattaca, that there's some really cool things coming into the realm and that people need to break free from their spiritual space. Absolutely. And they need to break it or, be damned, really. And the World Economic Forum, some of those guys, I mean, go back and listen, guy. I'm not even gently paraphrasing some of the horrific things that came out of that space. So when you had mentioned the NATO, whether or not we even need to have this anymore, man, I circled NATO and creation because there's like a creation space here. There's a delusional, like Steph is sharing, there's some Saturn and Neptune conjunction stuff happening in that space that goes back to 109 years ago when the Soviet Union and falling of Stalin and all of these things were churning internally within the governments. This is very similar ripple of like, what is the actual belief system? And someone saying, you know what, kill the baby. I don't want to be pregnant. I can't do this. It's not a baby anyway. It's not a baby yet. So I need to conserve my energy. I need to make some major life decisions and start creating the life that I want from here on forward. And I see that announcement almost happening. There's the solar eclipse happening on the 20th, and then a major meteor shower happening on the 23rd that starts a series of meteor showers that we see, I think, on average, I'd say like 3 to 5 major meteor showers every year. There's more than like 17 to 19 major meteor showers happening starting on April 20th. And I think it's interesting because that's like Easter season. That's egg season anyway. That's Ostera type season anyway. And the solar eclipse and meteor showers and theme of God moving into what we see for May, I don't know. That's what I have to add to that. What do you guys think in the chat room for April? April. Sorry, guys. Propaganda is going to be coming from all sides, says Dolly. Absolutely. I think Aquarius. My Pandora is playing the song Kansas City.
Almost. Well, we're 40 minutes in and we're getting into May.
We're doing good.
Again, I'm going to say the year for me is, I don't know how it is for Sarah. The year for me is front loaded. So the worst stuff's coming up in the front. So we got some big things in May. I have that because of all the economic issues, the United States is going to make some big moves to reallocate spending and resources to help the American people who are suffering under the economic harm that has caused since 2023. So, like, again, don't think about how things are right now. Think of things getting much worse and efforts being done to help minimize that. There's going to be just a general around the 16th and 17th. Look for those initiatives to get put in place, as well as some news is going to come up that's going to drive people to want even greater security. So around the 16th or 17th, look for something to come up that's going to rattle people, and they're going to want security, even if that means putting faith in a bad strongman type person just to protect them. So look for something big around the 16th or 17th that's going to scare people. I also have that sometime in the month of May, the U.S. is going to introduce some major legislation that's going to affect healthcare. So there's going to be a big healthcare thing that's going to happen in May. more discussions on the future of NATO. And since the U.S. earlier in the year has decided we're kind of taking ourselves off the world stage, other countries can deal with their own shit. The EU is going to try to step up and fill that void, but they're going to be inadequate in their ability to do so. That is my May.
Man, the privacy scare is interesting because I had for the 17th, I had like UFO question mark, UAP question mark. So for you to say, a scare of some kind about privacy and security, that makes me a little nervous. So filling in a little bit of that for May, I have the full moon as a flower full moon. That's on the 5th. And I wrote down the 5th. And on the 7th is an eclipse with another meteor shower. This is the again, kind of a repeat of whatever happened in April that was seeded for the creation of God theme. It moves over into May. And right in that first week is like a repeat of it, where it's like, oh, you thought you went and had an abortion? Guess what? It didn't stick. Or you're pregnant again. Or like, what? Someone else right next to you is like, so they're going to be announcing everyone who just had an abortion last night on the news. Like, it's going to be this one thing where you thought you did something to end something, but in fact, it rears its head again that first week of May. So I just kind of have written a repeat sign, like in music. And then on the 29th, I have a huge announcement. And it's not like me personally. On the 19th, I have.
All right, I got to deal with this. It's been years since we had this shit, but I got.
What is it?
Come look at our site for porno. It's starting to like.
Really?
Yeah. It's been a long time since we had that, but they're popping on here again. So I just blocked them.
Okay.
But generally what's going to happen is they're going to keep popping up. So.
Okay. We apologize for those of you joining us in the live chat. We're so popular that we have trolls from bots.
I'd rather have the Russian trolls pop in than I could like F with, which I actually do. Like, there's a bunch of other shows I follow that they do that.
Hey.
I love triggering Russians. So, but no.
What's on the 29th? What's the announcement on the 29th of May, do you think?
Oh, I don't have anything on the 29th. All my shit's on the 16th and 17th.
Man, I wonder if there's going to be like a UAP.
But I got to say, I have June as kind of the peak of all the bullshit. So my June is really bad. I got a lot for June.
Okay. So I'm just going to put be aware for the theme for May. That seems kind of like the most important thing. I am the sky looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules. Mm-hmm. That seems very important to sing. I don't know why. And music is so important this month. May. Okay, June. Halfway there.
So June, I have around the 11th, you're going to see a major power shift. Autocrats around the world are going to get in a much stronger position than kind of democracies. So June 11th is going to be kind of the peak of the era of the autocrats. Around June 19th, the U.S. with the House is going to not approve a increase in the debt ceiling, which is going to cause a crash and massive economic issues from that in June, which is going to cascade through everything. There's going to be cuts in international spending as well as domestic spending. There's going to be all these budget cuts, which is going to cause all this pain short-term economically, which the folks that worry about a credit card debt that we never, ever have to repay ever in our entire lifetime. Yes, I'm opining here. They're going to create all this pain to resolve a crisis that was never a crisis in the first place, but it's going to be huge around the 19th. I know I've just articulated my view that I feel the deficit is a non-issue that people make a lot of bullshit excuses about. All right. So related to that then, there's a huge void as the U.S. totally steps off the world stage. They're going to worry about their own shit. There's going to be this void that others are going to try to fill. Honestly, the EU will try to fill it, but honestly, this is going to be, we're going to step back at the expense of Russia and China getting way more influence on the world stage. And, some folks internally are going to naively think it doesn't matter because we just have to worry about ourselves and not worry about how our global position helps support all of our standard of living. But that is just me. Along with that, Ukraine and Eastern Europe are going to feel totally abandoned by the U.S. They're going to have a very adversarial reaction to us. And there's going to be this wave in June of basically anti-American sentiment that we cannot be trusted. So we take a massive hit on the world stage as far as how reliable we are as a partner. Along with that, and this will get into other things, but also in June. So I said June's the peak of all the bullshit. NATO collapses in June. So NATO as it exists now will cease to exist in June. That are my predictions from June. And I hope I'm wrong because it sucks.
I had move back. I had the phrase move back, that Pluto retro regeneration thingy-mabobber Pluto Capricorn shift. It's interesting. There's a full rose moon and movement of Venus on the 4th, the very first week of June, which I feel like for people who are aware and ready to go, this is that halfway through the year when people are like, you know what, it's been crazy, but I'm full speed ahead. And other people are like, this is crazy, I'm going back. That this is that moment where I think of Far and Away. I even was seeing the movie Far and Away in my meditation, where this run for a grab for land, to the point that like you're going back, you're going forth, you're going back, you're going forth. That story is so crazy. So many obstacles happening. On the 11th, the power shift of auto sales. I put something with auto industry. I don't know if that's going to be Elon, auto, elite, up, down, shift money. But I think it coincided with your political elite. My lightning bolt in China on the 20th aligns with your money on the 19th as well. The NATO collapse is interesting because I had kind of seen something similar to like an assassination or a stray bullet. I was seeing a stray bullet. So some sort of collapse in that way of like an ally or an ally illusion, the creation and breakdown of that illusion, and just homeland awareness.
I want to quick add. Dolly asked about Taiwan. I said this in the beginning. I think China is going to maybe make statements as things go on, but China is going to have massive, capital letters, massive issues both with COVID and domestic unrest, that China is not going to be able to do anything outside of their own borders this year other than maybe make some waves and kind of troll as things go on. But folks that maybe aren't very aware, China has had huge issues the last 2 years. So I kind of laugh at the US folks that are like worrying about China because China's been on the verge of collapse for the last 24 months. It's going to get worse for them in the next year. So you may hear them make statements and stuff, but China is not going to be in any position to cause any problems outside their own borders. They're already in trouble. If you guys don't, basically what happened, I'll say this really quick. People in China can't invest in the stock market. They invest in real estate. Real estate became a huge pyramid scheme. The pyramid scheme collapsed. People in China got pissed and started rebelling against their government in the last year. The government responded by saying, oh, COVID, we're going to lock everything down and put everybody into their houses. It had absolutely zero to do with COVID and more to do with containing a population that was pissed because their financial system collapsed. China in general is in way, way more trouble than US, Russia, Ukraine is economically. They are in a world of hurt. They're dangerous because, if they're close to collapsing, what are they going to do? But they're in a very weak position. And I predict in 2023, their position gets weaker, not stronger.
Man, this is so interesting how it's kind of panning out as I watch it unfold. I want to move into July because this is where I saw something interesting happening for, I mean, as far as politics goes in the United States, and that move back for June. I see the step back completely from like the Trump and running for president, and maybe even pulling out of that presidential spaces, people stepping back, pulling back. I see that on July 3rd. There's going to be a full buck supermoon on the 3rd, and I feel as though July there's just going to be major announcements made and a lot of crazy weather. So really high heat and really wild information that has people almost frozen in a weird way. And I don't see anything else happening in July. It's quite barren after that.
It's interesting. I have kind of a similar thing. I see the US totally focused on domestic stuff, which honestly, if you're economically hurt to the point that you can't eat, it's obviously going to be really important to that point. But as far as the global stage, we are totally like abandoning our position on the world stage, which is going to just let bad actors fill the void. Along with that, all these economic issues and strains are actually going to start putting a lot of pressure on the EU. The EU might fracture into independent countries, which again, some folks will find that as very funny. I'm going to ad lib here and say, I find this very funny, Sarah, that I don't believe in the evangelical view of things, but there are a lot of folks that believe in the literal view of Revelation, that believe that they are currently fighting against what would be the empire of the Antichrist, whereas I laugh because I feel they're going to tear apart what is actually good and help set the stage for some autocratic global government that will. So I don't necessarily not believe in kind of those predictions. I just feel their read on it is 180 degrees totally wrong and totally effed up. And so this is all going to help set the stage going forward of some autocratic government going forward.
I want to just, man, because of your familiarity with my spirit guides, for me to put barren and write it just in that open space of July, it makes me wonder what will be there. So for those of you joining us in the chat room, if you're just now joining, we are into the final months of our yearly prediction show. I know it might seem negative, but let's face it, guys, when you're going to the psychic, you're not there at times asking, announcing even that you've won the lottery numbers. People are usually looking for ways to get through the traffic or miss the obstacles, or what is it that I need to be aware of? And that is usually how we navigate the buoys in the water. They're there to just let us know not to go there, or that something is there, and then we get to make around that for ourselves. So these are just things to consider, things in the stars written in the intuitive spaces. And if you're joining us and have something to say, share it in the chat room. August. I've got 4 things written for August.
Oh, wow.
I will let
That's
you
cool.
go
I have
first.
very brief, so I'll go first and let you elaborate. All I have for August is the economic situation for the U.S. and the West gets far worse, and Russia's position in August gets much stronger. That's all I have for August. And I'm thinking that's related to energy again.
I wonder which one it's going to be, guns or energy.
I'm going to say ahead of time, I have the exact same things for September. Nothing different. So August and September are just basically the West starts sucking at the expense of Russia doing better.
Well, what's interesting in the astrology is the second half of the year is just an amateur astrologer's wet dream. There are so many cool, weird, wild, and ridiculous things happening in the stars more than usual for the second half of the year. If you don't have a telescope and you're going to be eating your neighbor, man, You should go out and get a telescope. Because there's going to be 4 super moons. The first one is in July, that buck super moon in the first week. August 1st, it starts the moon really strong with the second super moon. And then on the 27th, I have written down Saturn is in opposition. So I see a rule shift for guns and or energy. And I can't quite decide how I feel the intuition is going to fall on that. On the 11th, I have that the United States money or investment space, that there's going to be a decline or a hit. So if I were doing money and investments, I'd probably do it in the first few months of August if I was going to make some moves, because after that, I see it declining. And whatever this thing on the 27th is, that's the Saturn opposition for rules. I usually see that as like a COVID thing. In the last few years, it's been major policies on like mask wearing and vaccination incentives. I don't know what this is going to be for August, so I'm going to turn to my divination and see what's playing there. What about you, Matt? What do you hear after hearing that? Houndmouth, Little Neon Limelight, Sedona. The song, I have no idea what song that is.
I honestly, and I started teeing this up in the chat, I have August and September as fairly quiet but negative. Like things just keep going in a bad direction. I have October as a pretty big month.
Okay.
So I got some big stuff coming in October, but August and September I have as fairly quiet, other than it's just consistent bad news.
Wow. Okay. Well, if we're not eating each other by then, guys, and on the Oregon Trail of our own, then let's go ahead and start saying what we see for September 2023. What predictions do you have written? I guess I only have 2 things written for September. I didn't see a whole lot. I felt like September, I know where I want to be personally. Jacine, Katie, Autumn, for those of you, I've got where I would like to be. But September, I have the 19th. That's a Neptune opposition. That is a space of delusion. When I was kind of meditating on that, I feel like this is a metaverse shift. This is an AI shift. This might be when we think of the Neuralink spaces. I get a little nervous here because I see a definite metaverse shift in the mid-September, September 19th. On the 29th is the full harvest moon, September 29th. What did I see there? And this is like, I don't see a democracy, which is weird. I see a lot of darkness. Like I see change that's so different from what I see now in my mind, that September, knowing that there's a delusional moment, it's almost like, am I in a different universe? Like, what's happening? What am I seeing here?
I agree with you in that I feel the overall energy is moving towards autocracy and strongmen and people willing to give up freedom and opportunity to be under someone who they feel protects them. I feel people are going to be willing to sacrifice rights and opportunity for stability and security, even though, me personally, I feel security is an illusion. There really isn't such a thing as that. So I would not be willing to I wouldn't give a penny to anybody for security. So, but that's me. I feel that's going to be the shift.
I have to add my intuition.
I feel security is a myth that never exists in any form. But that's me.
No, I like that. Dolly's asking, what did Jefferson say about tyranny? I often think of the Benjamin Franklin, that he who is willing to trade his liberty for security.
I feel there's no difference to somebody trying to sell me safety and security than somebody trying to sell me a unicorn. They're both in the same realm of reality.
Yeah. Man, there's some really interesting energy there. And the word right. Right. Right as in the right wing. Right as in morally right. Right as in ethically right. Right as in right. Right as in right. Right as in right.
Like
I
I
feel like there's some
honestly,
really
I'm
that.
probably gonna get hate from this, but I like laugh at the people that like spend tons of money on like arms and ammo and feeling that it makes them feel safer. When in reality,
Ooh.
it's all circumstantial as to whether that actually is going to help them or not in the grand scheme of things.
Well, you
I
should
feel
just
it's just
know that there's
I
someone like
feel it's an
me out there
illusion. If
who
it
will
makes you
take
feel better and if it makes you sleep well at night, fantastic. But in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't move the needle nearly as much as you feel it does.
I think it's interesting that some of us are mentioning like the founding fathers here. A lot of people in the chat are mentioning the founding fathers. So I almost want to write that down because I'm getting that Nicolas Cage Night at the Museum, like weird, quirky,
Yeah.
is it alive? Is it not? Like history space. And so I'm also seeing energy right and like questioning the word right and like thinking, man, is this where we're gonna be like doing levitation and like weird like are we in the holodeck or like what's going on here? And there's a lot of question marks in September, but I mean them purposefully. Like there might be a lot of questioning.
My big month is October, so that's me.
Oh, it
I
is.
keep all my Christmas stuff up. Just so you guys know, people around here start putting their Christmas shit up on November 1st. So I'm like, screw that shit. I'm keeping my stuff up till the end of January. So
That's okay.
you'll hear this on future shows because I'm like, screw that shit.
That's okay. I've been having Wendigo issues, and that's like the old song that I hear in the Wendigo realm. So I was like,
Oh, wow. Sorry.
Anyway, okay. October. Let's do October, guys. We're coming to the end.
I got a lot of shit for October.
Okay. October 2023. That's
All
this
right.
year. You guys were in 2023. What do you got, Matt? What's the
All
prediction
right.
for this space?
Biggest thing I have here is based on all the economic issues in the House controlling spending, look for some huge initiative to come in to cut off all benefits and all spending to any immigrant in the U.S. that is not documented. So you're going to see a huge initiative there to cut off any spending. Not that I think, again, I'm being personal here, that I think that's going to really move the needle, but it'll make some people feel happy. So look for that to get cut off. The bigger thing here is I think Ukraine is going to cut a deal, and there's going to be an alliance made between Ukraine and other former Soviet states and possibly Eastern European countries, and they're going to exclude Russia. So there's going to be this kind of new alliance formed, kind of anti-Russian, but not aligned with the West. And it's going to really piss Russia off. So this is going to be kind of Ukraine in October coming out of all this, giving a huge FU to Russia. And you're going to see some other former Soviet states jumping in along with them, coming out of the chaos of everything that's going on here. I would expect Armenia to jump in on that, possibly Kazakhstan, maybe the Baltics and Poland, some of these other countries, depending on what happens. There's going to be this new alliance that's going to form that's not going to include Russia, and it's going to piss Russia off. Europe, because U.S. backs out of the world stage, Europe is going to be forced to start cutting deals and making alliances with China, Russia, and Iran. So look for all deals to constrain Iran to go away because the U.S. has totally turned their back on the world. And finally, there's going to be a new, after NATO collapses in October, you're going to see the new NATO 2.0 form, which I feel is going to exclude all those Eastern European countries that Russia objected about. Maybe is possibly going to include some Asian countries to counter China. It might not even be called NATO, but you're going to see a new renewed alliance coming out of all this chaos that's going to come out. So look for that. And the U.S. will be involved in that. And it'll be spun as, hey, this is a more viable view of things. But for me personally, I feel Russia was the bigger threat than China on the world stage. I don't feel that, doing a new alliance with Japan and South Korea, so to speak, is going to make us any better off.
Man, I love it.
Dolly's talking about, I just noticed that. My ear is really red.
it's you're getting that channeling that energy is just coming right
Yeah,
through.
there's a huge difference in color between my ears. That's embarrassing though. Thank
No,
you,
it's
Alex.
not. One thing I have to just
I'll describe that as I'm channeling my
yes, you are.
predictive analytics.
For real. For real. The when you mentioned the benefit cut, the policy cut, I had mentioned there was going to be for October. I see in the first week of October a major cut for policy control or control policy or brackets around control or policies breaking. On the 14th, there is an eclipse, a meteor shower, craziness all happening that I think is going to kind of begin this awareness, maybe even solar flares, panel, crazy news that generates, on the 28th, there's a blood full moon and an eclipse and a meteor shower, again, all happening in the space for crazy things. And I had written in brackets, Russia, sad face. I almost wonder if something might happen to Putin. I wonder if something might happen. He's really minimized himself to being the only leader in his space. All other people that could possibly even, rise up against him, he has killed or, brainwashed. And so if and when he is immortal, something happens to him, a mortal, not immortal, that what is going to happen to Russia and what position has it
we
been
are
left
close
in?
here because I have that for November. Just
You do? Okay. I have it for 28th of October, right before Halloween, right when all of this stuff is happening.
I have in November a great period of domestic unrest in Russia in November. So if he passes off the scene on the 28th, that would lead
think he
towards
has like a seizure.
Yeah.
I think he has
I don't have anything
Parkinson's.
specific to him. I just have unrest in Russia in November.
I see sad face. And then I see this alliance that builds up. And then what's weird is that lately the movie The Patriot, which is a specific part of the war, the space between powers there, like what, the 1700s, I think of that Mel Gibson movie, The Patriot, Paris, Germany, Paris. I have written Paris. Paris is written down for me in October, right there towards the end and after the 28th. So like the 30th, 29th, 30th, Paris comes up. So just something to think about as far there. And I know these are crazy. Like, where did this information come from? This is all just kind of, we're pulling and plucking it out of the stars, but our own intuition as well. So you guys, if there's anything you want to add for October before moving into these last 2 months, what do you see? What do you have to add? Steph, Callie, Katie, Dolly, Steven, any of you guys? What do you think, Matt?
So I actually feel there's not a lot I have in the last 2 months, but I feel what I do have is very profound, and it's going to really set up some big shit going into 2024. And so the first thing is related to what you said. I do believe something's going to happen to Putin, based on what you said, probably in October. But I see huge unrest in Russia in November, along with the realigned, whatever that looks like, Western response is going to realign in some new form to aggressively start countering Russia and China. So there's going to be this adversarial. You'll see when I get into December, this is going to get into a bigger issue, but kind of out of the chaos of kind of the U.S. like backing off things, there's going to be kind of this realignment of how are we going to counter Russia and China, and that's going to become a bigger issue in December when we get there.
I've only written down the 9th of November. The 9th of November, I have some natural disaster happening in the Northeast. Like, I want to say maybe even a Canada. I don't know what's up there. But I feel very cold this month. I feel very sterile. I hate to use that word. Dolly says we might be adopting the new Canadian euthanasia laws. I know we just recently adopted some of the American Psychological Association's adaptations to bipolar personality disorders being less scrutinized over suicidality. But I don't know about euthanasia. Let's go ahead and add that though, because the euthanasia felt really good to the cold and the silent space that I feel in November. I would be, man, please put this in parentheses. And Matt, you know where my brain might be going in this space, but if Putin dies and Russia falls and barriers break, and even in sad countries, we move into that space and uncover some amazing atrocities that have been happening in places like Taiwan and other genocides of our time that we've been like worried about other things over. It's going to be sad. It would be sad. And that would be, I feel like, November. Yeah. I feel like that would be like, oh, snap.
So people know I describe myself as, obviously you need to be aware of political things, but I'm like the Trotsky of democracy. So I am like for removing autocracies anywhere in the globe and making things like democratic and will of the people. And if we need to split up countries into smaller parts to get people representation, I'm like all for that. So yeah. So honestly, even though it would like possibly create chaos, I feel like the autocracy like collapsing in Russia would be a good thing. And as you know, I'm scared to death of the folks in our own country that seem to be more favorable of a autocratic more view to bring stability here. I'm much more for freedom over stability. So that shit bothers the shit out of me. So I posted on my own social media, which I know a lot of folks listening won't see it, that I feel historically there has never been a good autocrat, king, or emperor in the whole history of humanity. So going that route is never a good thing because they're never good.
I'm gonna, just because I looked to the divination for finishing up that November space, the 27th is the full frost moon on the 27th. I'd put see new things. Like, I went to my Pandora and there's a song that I've never heard before. It's called Real Love, Baby by Father John Misty. And I've not ever heard it, but I'm just looking at the lyrics and it's, our hearts are free. So tell me what's wrong with this feeling, because I'm just a flower and you're my bee. It's much older than you and me. We will go back to the stars.
And I'll add, as much as this is probably inconsistent, as much as I'm for everybody doing their own thing, I do feel like America is the modern day Rome. And we have a nice standard of living because we are Rome and we should remain Rome. I'm not for like breaking us apart too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel the whole world would have been better off if the barbarians never overran Rome in the first place. So, but that's me.
Uncover. I like this uncover theme. I do feel relief. I see some people in the chat room, Callie, mentioning like, we'll think about the new King Charles, some of the possibilities of geological changes, some major announcements with quantum computing and fusion and energy fights and things that are absolutely going to shift. We know this, and so we know change is certain. Death, taxes, and change, guys. We do know that. So let's finish the year strong with our predictions. And don't forget, guys, if you have anything
December is big.
December.
What do you got for December?
Message us. Well, I've only got two things. One, I have the 3rd written down as a day. It's like a Pearl Harbor, an infamy day. I'm not sure how I feel about December 3rd, but I wrote down infamy.
Wait until I give you mine. And
okay, that makes me nervous. And then on the 27th is a cold full moon. And I feel like this is very much a horror movie moment, like a Cloverfield moment. I'm not kidding. We're like
I'm
coming to the
laughing
end of the
because
year.
wait till you hear my shit, and we're gonna like
Oh
align very
no.
well here.
Okay.
Kind of
Okay.
like
Well,
Tuesday when we picked the same card.
I have SNL dies. So that's sad. Just as like a solid little SNL dies this year. But Cloverfield, I have Cloverfield question mark with the cold full moon on the 27th and then a day that lives in infamy on the 3rd. So there you go. What do you have?
All right, so put that in alignment with what I see. I see December as the huge cliffhanger for 2024 as to what the hell is going to happen. I see Russia and China being very aggressive towards we need to tear down the current global order and put in place the multipolar world that they always talk about. Basically, this kind of collapse of the UN kind of current status of things, kind of what they proposed prior to in February of last year. I feel they're going to be very aggressive and very assertive in pushing that. I feel that whatever falls out of this chaos on the West is going to be aligned in very strong opposition to that. So there's going to be tension there. And then add to it that Russia is not going to be happy with how things ended with Ukraine. And so they're going to start intervening and doing Ukraine 2.0 in December of 2023, which is going to just amp up on lots of levels the overall global tension. So things aren't going to blow up, but I see the year ending in a very tense, high level of anxiety moment, ending what I view as a very bad year on a very tense and bad note. And again, I'm going to add for the probably 100th time today that I hope I'm completely wrong in this. And I'd be more than happy to see comments a year later saying, Matt, you're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, like we said, for people when they go to a psychic, usually what you are looking for are the landmines. You know, when we say, hey, go out there and live carefree, you're able to usually live carefree when you've thought over the things to worry about and you've come to the conclusions on how to prepare for them. So that is what this is designed to do. And oftentimes, and you know, we have been accurate, freakishly so, in our past predictive shows. And we do this a little bit each week on our astrology and alchemy breakdown so that you can learn your own intuitive vision. And guys, I'll be honest with you, anything and everything that we have covered tonight from January to December, from energy collapses to structural shakes to preludes of rebellion to Roe versus Wade discussions and euthanasia, all of these things, technological fraying, these are pivot points for change, and they are awareness for preparation. And all of us will absolutely be going through it together, which is exciting. And so to be able to just know how to prepare, I think is powerful. A lot of people are reactionary. And those are really the two different types, is either you can have a just be reactionary, oh my God, or the whole, well, you know, I did see this coming and I was hoping that it wouldn't, but luckily I put aside some peanut butter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And just to let folks know, because I'm hearing all this, you know, give us some good news. And so like, I really feel bad about this, but just so everyone knows what I did on this is I took the overall aspects for the year, and then you can do based on the founding.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Sorry about that. You can do a chart based on just like a birth chart, the founding of a country, the birth of a leader. And so I started doing like the yearly outlook for all the different countries and seeing what their aspects look like and look for similarities. And sadly, some of these for like, you know, US, NATO, EU, Russia, they all seem to be wildly consistent in the aspects that they showed. And so that's what drove me to make those conclusions. I hope I'm wrong, but so folks know why I came out with the predictions that I did. That's how I did it is I looked at the charts for the year for those different entities based on, you know, based like Philadelphia, July 4th, 1776 is like USA. You can do those different things for China and NATO. You can do that for anything and then start pulling their charts and looking at what the aspects look like. So that's where I came up with what I did.
And often, guys, we will, on like a superfluous level, do who do we think is going to win the Super Bowl? Who's going to win the Grammy? And we would like to do those things throughout the year as they approach a little bit more closely. We can, of course, give you our ideas now if you want. You can always ask. We have 2 minutes left here as we wrap up. But that Pluto return for the United States, and for those of you looking maybe how to use this in a positive way, we shared there in the chat room. Look at ways to invest in that new energy, invest in people who are leaders and very positive, strong, natural growth ways, investments. You're going to see a lot of cannabis growth. You're going to see natural holistic remedies. You're going to see a breakdown in healthcare. So follow those patterns and make money and investment moves in relation to that rather than being reactionary and spending and not being able to prepare wisely.
And I'm going to add quick Pluto, which, that's like every like 20 to 30 years it moves. Pluto moving into a new sign is huge. So even if we are wrong, the March move into Aquarius, look for something huge to happen in March. And then when it moves back in retrograde, which I want to say is May, I don't have it. I'm trying to scan here really quick. It's May or June I think it's June. May when it moves back into, or June. Okay. When it moves back into Cap. So March and June, look for something huge to happen. Again, just keep in mind, the last time it moved when it moved from Sag into Cap was the Great Recession, which was profound for so many people and actually changed how like businesses worked from that day forward. So, Pluto moves are huge, and there's 2 Pluto moves this year. So, even if we're wrong on the details, I can tell you with pretty much confidence that pretty major shit's going to go down between March and June.
And it's going to be exciting because, guys, just like anyone pulling a tarot card reading and you get the death card, where something dies and where there is that natural void, there is a siphon and suction for new energy to come in. Oh, I hear crunchies. So there's an opportunity for,
is one of your kids sharpening a pencil? That's what it sounds like. Are they sharpening a pencil? Is that what it is?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So you're going to use information, rent relief, stimulus checks. It could be cancellations of credit. It could be like a Fight Club event where someone has a terrorist attack and blows up the IRS. Who knows? But what's exciting is we'll be there doing it with you. And if you guys want to join us every Tuesday for the Astrology and Alchemy show, you can. Or if you'd like to get a birth chart reading and have it break down, man, you should do that.
Just like what we're doing for the whole year here, we can do that for each and every one of you personally. You just have to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to do that.
I know.
I'm also going to add to Dolly, who said in the end it wouldn't be, regardless of what happens, keep in mind that, we're all resilient. So, I'm personally of the opinion that whatever the universe throws at us, we'll just deal with it and make the best of it going forward. So I'm never a gloom and doom person. It's just, it is what it is. And we take what gets thrown at us and we make lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. I see like Jacine in the chat room. It's almost that analogy. She's kind of using the Wizard of Oz. That part in the movie, if you're familiar with it, where they realize after all this, I'm going to ask for a brain. I'm going to ask for a heart. It's going to be so great. It's going to be so great. We've done this. We've endured. We've gotten here. We nearly died, but we did it. That fucker is just a man behind a curtain, and he is not going to be able to grant them any of these magical things because he is just a dude. Don't look. Don't look.
I got to laugh because you got to do this. I just picked. Do you have your cards with you?
Yeah.
Pick a card for the year. I just picked a card for the year. I think it's very consistent, but I don't like it. I'm just curious what.
Okay.
And I'm going to laugh if we get the same one.
What one? You have the One of Wands? What is that?
No, I'm not showing. I have the back to it. I'm not showing you.
Oh, you have the back of it? Okay.
It's consistent. I feel the card I picked is very consistent with what I've said today. You got the okay. I got 5 of Wands, which I always describe as as you see it, the conflict card. And I do see a lot of turmoil and conflict this year. You got the Fool. I'll let you describe how you see the Fool. I see that as a good thing as well. I don't see that as a bad thing.
I see that as like that moment in The Wizard of Oz of, oh shoot, we've been duped this whole time. Well, now what? Well, then you realize that you had it the whole time. Then you realize that the fool on the hill sees the sun going down. You know that you're seeing things with new eyes in a naive way. And man, naive is nice to a point because there's a lot you still don't know. And I think that this will be a year where we go into it thinking, man, it couldn't possibly, everything I wanted. I wrote down for the original theme when we started tonight's show. And be careful what you wish for. If you remember that horrible B quality Wishmaster movie from the horror aisle at Blockbuster, that be careful what you wish for. Gen energy, that is fire, that is chaos, that is destruction, but it's also growth. And I think that'll be pretty cool for everybody involved. There's going to be new things by this time next year that are growing in our lives. What's it going to be?
A lot for folks heading into next year. Next week, we are more than likely going to do the Order of the Solar Temple. If you're aware of that or not, it's a creepy ass cult. So we're going to get into that. And then I have found over my Christmas break an app. I haven't talked to Sarah about this yet. Randonautica. Supposedly use quantum physics to find points that you give your intention, and it will lead you to certain places. And I got to say, I've experimented with it so far. There's some YouTube videos out there that are pretty creepy, but I don't know whether they're real or not. I got to say, my experience has been 50-50. I was in a town where my son wants to live and didn't say anything to anyone and just basically hit it and thought to myself, where's the best place for my son to move? And ironically, out of anywhere it could pick, it picked not only an apartment complex, but an actual building in the apartment complex for him in the town that he wants to move for. So like that shit's creepy. But then I'll do it in other cases and we can't validate because it'll be like houses. Like it was weird. Like there was one where I said, show me something really scary. And it took me to a shed in the back of a house. Now, I can't go investigate that shed. For all I know, there's a body in that freaking shed. But I'm not going to get arrested trespassing on properties. So we're going to do some videos going forward, investigating this Randonautica app and seeing. I'm going to go into the battlefield where we've done some spirit box work and do some things on that front. And, I've done some fairly generic things. When I do the show, I'm going to do things like, show me something extremely scary, extremely disturbing, things along those lines and see what happens. So we're going to do that in the near future as well. But the next show is going to be this Order of the Solar Temple. As I've told you all, I have 350 show topics to do. So there's a lot of different ones going. Sarah wants...
I'm excited.
I think Katie wants us to pull a card for her for 2023, if I understand that. So
okay, yeah. Can we pull one? Matt and Sarah got
Katie's
cards.
a great supporter of the show, so I'm always happy to do. This isn't good nor bad, Katie. I get Two of Pentacles, which is balance. So much like the girl on the bike, you got to balance two different things in your life going forward.
And I get the Six of Wands, which is independent nostalgia in the way of action, that you're getting ready to do something that you've thought about doing or even have done in the past, like maybe write that book or do that craft. You're going to do it again, but you're going to do it with some new, fresh eyes. And there's also a younger person maybe in the space that's going to help you with some insight and a new perspective. And it's going to be a great endeavor and it'll work out well, Katie. So I'm excited to see what that will be for you.
It's funny. I'll share. My one son has started getting into this, and I've never had this happen before, and he's not getting it. He does readings, and I think we're 6 readings in now where he consistently gets the Queen of Wands, and he keeps focusing on other cards, and I keep telling him, dude, you're getting beat over the head. You got to figure out who your Queen of Wands is and what the deal is there, because that's the issue you got to deal with.
And it will haunt you. Yeah. Jacine says, man, do one for me too. Jacine.
I'll be happy to do. And I believe part of the Oz from Jacine, if I remember right, I think she's from Australia. So I think that was part of the Oz references, was the country, not the movie.
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
No.
I pulled the 7 of
Sorry,
Cups.
Jacine. I don't like getting this card.
What is it?
4 of Cups. But I got to add, if you look at the picture, the guy is sad, looking to the left at the empty cups, where there is the girl to the right that has the full cups.
Right.
The reason on the card is they are sad over what has happened in the past and not looking towards the future. So I will take that as don't be sad over past issues. Look towards the optimistic things you have going forward. Oh, you got a cups too. Which
Well,
cups
and
did
then
you get?
I got the 7 of
Oh,
Cups,
okay. I
which
was gonna say if you
I
were
always think
4, I
of the
was gonna fall over.
gamble. No, the gamble and that like drawing something that you have, you're looking off, ship, everything is really great. But then meanwhile, like the cups are pouring, the water is evaporating, that things are changing as you're drawing them. Love is growing as you capture it, and things in your cup aren't what they are after you drink them. So that energy is moving in a kind of unique way, and I'll be interested to see what the final product is that you're drawing. The 7 is a gamble, so choices will be made in your relationship spaces.
Yeah, I want to focus
Yes,
on
you're
this one
very
again for
welcome.
anyone that might get this card. If you look again, he's sad because of the empty cups in front of him. He's not seeing the smiling girl to his right with the tray of full cups. The idea is that there is great
Right.
opportunity in your future, but you're not seeing it because you're focusing on what you lost in the past. So just keep that in mind. It's a lesson I need to remind myself of, honestly. So,
Yeah. Good one.
all right.
Well,
Well,
guys,
thank you, everyone. We
it
will
is
see you
9.
in less than 48 hours for astrology and alchemy. So we'll do our weekly predictions astrology wise. And Sarah, always happy to have you on as a guest on Sunday. It's always great to have you on here. So thank you for joining.
My pleasure,
And
guys.
as always, everyone on here that joins me on Sunday nights, thank you for taking part of this as we build it. Give a little shameless plug. Like, share on your own social media, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It certainly helps. We don't do this as a career. I don't do this. We keep this for live chat. We keep this as an adult thing, which keeps it kind of off some of the algorithms. So anything you do to help us certainly helps that front. So I appreciate it. And as always, have a great 2023, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everyone.